League of Legends is a wonderful, exciting, and incredible esport, but for newcomers it can also be intimidating, overwhelming, and hard to learn. My name is TBSkyn, and with my amateur casting skills and a lot of editing, I'm gonna try and show you all why you should love this esport as much as I do. This is LCS for beginners. Alright, we are into Champion Select. Now, the first thing that's going to happen in Champion Select is that each team will ban away 3 champions that they do not want their enemies to play. Teams can choose to take away champions that enemy players might be very comfortable or famous for playing, or they can choose to take away picks that would counter their own plans for the game, or who are simply overpowered in the current state of the game. Once the bans are complete, the blue team on the left side will pick their first champion, then the red team will pick 2 champions, the blue team will pick 2 champions, the red team will pick another 2, the blue team will pick their final 2, and the red team will lock in their final 1. As the pick and ban phase goes on, the teams will be reacting to each other's moves, trying to anticipate what the enemy team is attempting to do with their composition of champions. Having the very first pick of the game on the blue side will sometimes enable you to lock in a very contested champion that the other team might want, while having the last pick on the red side will give you the opportunity to see the entirety of your opponent's composition of champions and lock in your final pick based on that, so you might be able to counterpick something that they have picked, or bring out a secret weapon or an unconventional pick that your opponents were not counting on. With both compositions now locked in and finalized, however, let's take a look at the individual champions. Darius, the Hand of Noxus, is a juggernaut. Slow, powerful, and almost unstoppable in the late game. He's a terrifying executioner who can obliterate low-health enemies, and every single attack he lands on someone will bleed them over time, causing additional damage. While Darius is very powerful in a close-up fight, he does have quite a bit of trouble escaping bad situations and chasing enemies who are faster than him. Among his key abilities are Apprehend, with which he will grab an enemy with his axe, dragging them towards him. This is key for keeping his foes in range for follow-up damage and forcing them to stay in a toe-to-toe fight with him, which is where he's most powerful. Another ability is Decimate, which swings his axe in a circle, healing himself based on how many enemies he hits. With this ability, Darius can heal himself for quite a significant amount of damage if he's in the middle of the enemy team. This helps make Darius fairly durable in a close-up fight, even with multiple enemies attacking him at the same time. His ultimate is Noxian Guillotine, his most iconic ability. With this, he will dash instantly to a target, dealing heavy, unblockable damage to them. More importantly, however, if this ability kills an enemy, it can be instantly reused for a short time for absolutely free. Darius can get into the middle of an enemy team at the end of a fight and just start executing enemies one after another. As a trade-off for all this power, however, Darius is extremely vulnerable to getting kited by enemies who can stay at range and keep damaging him without Darius being able to get in range for his powerful abilities to do their work. Elise, the Spider Queen, is a mobile, aggressive jungler who can transform between different forms to gain new abilities. Elise's most important ability is the ability to transform between spider form and human form. In each form, Elise has very different abilities and is able to affect the game in very different ways. In her spider form, Elise does more damage, while her human form is better at controlling the battlefield through scouting and disabling enemies. One of her important abilities available in her spider form is called Repel. Elise will repel up into the air and stay there for a brief time. While in the air, she can choose a target and descend upon them. The ability does no damage, but it does allow Elise to scout in a wide area, avoid enemy damage, and choose exactly where she wants to get down on the battlefield. Another important ability available in her human form is Cocoon, which will throw a ball of web that stuns the first enemy it hits. This is one of her primary tools for catching foes, and while it is difficult to land this spell, it has such a long duration that landing it can sometimes virtually guarantee a kill on an enemy. Elise is generally speaking a rather fragile champion with a tendency to fall off in the late game, but her incredible versatility and ability to change forms makes her a force to be reckoned with. Lulu is an extremely flexible support character. Due to the nature of her abilities, she can be played in the top lane, the mid lane, or in the bottom lane as a support for the AD carry. She has the ability to slow down and harass enemies and provide very powerful shields for her allies against damage. Lulu's own damage, however, is fairly limited, and if she does not place her shields correctly on her allies at critical moments, she becomes highly ineffective. Among her key abilities are the Glitter Lance, with which she will fire a purple skill shot that damages and heavily slows any enemies caught in its path. The Glitter Lance is Lulu's primary way of harassing her enemies, as the damage is quite high at early levels, and the slow can completely frustrate any enemy attempts to close distance or get away. Another important ability is the Whimsy, which will speed up an ally or transform an enemy into a harmless
harmless critter briefly. As a harmless critter, the enemy cannot attack or cast any spells, and they will be slowed down mildly as they hop around inefficiently across the field. Finally, her ultimate is the Wild Growth, which will suddenly increase the size of a nearby ally, granting extra health and knocking all surrounding enemies into the air. This ability is at its most effective when it's used on an ally who's in the middle of multiple enemies who will all be knocked into the air as the ally gains a huge burst of health, allowing them to survive and escape, or to re-engage the fight with renewed vigor. If the enemy, however, can force Lulu to use the Wild Growth on suboptimal targets to save them from death, they can weaken her impact for an upcoming teamfight or engagement. Jinx is a late-game hyper-carry marksman. What a hyper-carry is a champion who is unusually weak and vulnerable early on, but if they can survive the early game and get to the late game, they become overwhelmingly dangerous damage threats, able to almost entirely carry the game for their team. As a champion, Jinx has relatively limited mobility and is quite vulnerable without some support for the rest of her team to protect her. To compensate for that, she has incredible attack speed, especially with her minigun, and can do an ungodly amount of damage in a very short time. She also has the ability to snowball entire fights from getting just a single kill or assisting in a kill. A big part of the reason for this is her key ability, Get Excited. This is a passive ability that when Jinx kills or assists in the kill of a champion or a structure, she gains a massive movement speed for a few seconds, allowing her to chase, dodge, weave in and out of fights with incredible efficiency. The weakness, of course, is that in order to get this massive movement speed boost and the power that comes with it, she really does need to get a kill. Another key ability for Jinx is the Switcheroo, which switches between her high-speed short-range minigun and her area of effect long-range rocket launcher. The minigun ramps up in speed the more Jinx uses it, and she can reach an absolutely incredible attack speed. On the downsides, though, it is very short-ranged, and Jinx will usually be vulnerable to counterattacks if she attempts to use this to engage an enemy head-on. Her rocket launcher, affectionately named Fishbones, lies on the other end of the scale with very long range and area of effect damage, but every single time she fires it, it costs a portion of her mana. Her ultimate is the Super Mega Death Rocket. It fires a huge rocket all the way across the map, dealing bonus damage to any enemy it hits who happens to be at low health.
Alistar the Minotaur is a support. He is an incredibly tough melee defender, very difficult to kill, and can knock the enemy around to protect his allies or knock the enemy into danger. His key ability combo is Headbutt Pulverize, a combo of two abilities that causes Alistar to charge forward and knock up all enemies in an area around him. This combo is incredibly useful for either starting fights by picking out a few enemies and disabling them long enough for his team to follow up, or for preventing enemies from engaging fights that his team does not want to take. Each of the abilities in the combo can also be used on their own to either knock back or knock up nearby enemies, but used in a combination is his signature and most powerful combo. His ultimate is Unbreakable Will, with which he will break free from all disabling effects and gain a 70% damage reduction for 7 seconds. This makes him nearly unkillable, even despite the general tendency of support characters to be relatively weak and easy to kill. In this way, Alistar can act as a frontline tank for his team, absorbing damage and preventing the enemy from getting near the fragile champions on his team. Gnar, the Missing Link, is a tiny, adorable, furry little creature who occasionally transforms into a giant hulking rage monster. Switching between the two forms brings about great changes in his playstyle, and juggling the forms correctly is how a great Gnar player makes his impact. When Gnar deals or takes damage, his rage ball will fill up. Once it is full, he will transform into Mega Gnar. This transformation is very temporary, so while he gains a huge burst of power as Mega Gnar, enemies can easily wait it out if they can get away from him. Gnar players will be very carefully managing their rage to ensure that they have their Mega form ready for important teamfights. If they fail to do this, they lose a lot of their power and impact in a fight, as well as access to their ultimate, which is only available to Mega Gnar. Among Gnar's key abilities are the Boomerang Throw / Boulder Throw. As Mini Gnar, he will throw a boomerang in a straight line, dealing damage, while as Mega Gnar, he will throw an entire boulder at the enemy. Any enemies who are hit will be damaged and slowed, and the projectile can be caught when it's a boomerang or retrieved when it's a boulder to reduce the cooldown. This allows Gnar to spam this ability quite quickly, but only if he can actually catch and retrieve the projectile. His ultimate, Gnar, is only available when he is in Mega Gnar form. When using this ultimate, he will drag his claws across the ground, damaging and throwing all enemies caught back. Any enemies who are slammed into the wall will be briefly stunned. This is the most powerful teamfighting ability that Gnar has. If he can get into an enemy team and slam several members against the nearby wall, he can set up his team for a magnificent teamfight.
Rek'Sai is an extremely mobile and extremely aggressive jungler with a number of curious twists to her gameplay. First of all, Rek'Sai's gameplay revolves around being burrowed or unburrowed at various times and taking advantage of different abilities while in each state. Above ground, Rek'Sai has much better damage output and can see like a normal champion, while below ground she is much more mobile but does not have any vision whatsoever. While underground, instead of vision, she has what's called the tremor sense. Any enemies that are moving around near Rek'Sai will cause little ripples to appear on the map that Rek'Sai can see, essentially representing where their footsteps fall. Rek'Sai can always tell whether someone is walking around near her, even if she cannot tell who exactly it is. This makes it very difficult to hide from Rek'Sai unless you're standing perfectly still, in which case Rek'Sai, while burrowed, will have absolutely no idea where you are. Among her most important abilities is the Burrow-Unburrow ability. Now, this does more than simply switch Rek'Sai between being above ground and below ground. When she emerges out of the ground, unburrowing, all enemies near her will be knocked briefly into the air. She is rather a fragile champion, so she relies on the element of surprise, getting underneath the enemy and knocking them into the air in order to be effective in a fight. Another key ability is Tunnel. It will tunnel her a short distance across the map, leaving behind a tunnel that can be reused after a short time. With this ability, Rek'Sai can essentially create a network of tunnels across the map, allowing her to move extremely quickly in and out of key positions. Enemies can, however, collapse these tunnels by briefly standing on top of them. Her ultimate is the Void Rush. When she uses this ability, she will rush to any one of her tunnels on the map with absolutely mind-bogglingly extreme speed. It is incredibly quick. The catch, of course, is that if her enemies are destroying all of her tunnels, she cannot use the Void Rush at all, and if she doesn't have a tunnel in a good position, Void Rushing to it, well, might be quite irrelevant. Also, it's worth noting that if Rek'Sai takes any damage whatsoever while she's winding up to use this ability, it will be cancelled. So Rek'Sai has to be very careful about the timing of when she uses it. It is great for getting into combat, but it is completely useless in combat.
Echo, the boy who shattered time, is a tricky, agile fighter who uses time travel to trick his foes and heal his own wounds. Echo's play pattern is based around using planning and quick reactions to outplay enemies, but as a trade-off, he is fairly fragile and quite vulnerable to sudden bursts of damage. Among his key abilities are Parallel Convergence, which after a delay will throw a sphere onto the field that slows all enemies that are caught inside it. If Echo himself enters the sphere while it's on the field, all enemies inside at the same time will be stunned and Echo will gain a shield, protecting him from damage for a short time. His most iconic ability is Chrono Break, his ultimate. After level 6, Echo is followed by a shadow that retraces his steps on a 4-second delay. Chrono Break will teleport Echo to that shadow, dealing a ton of damage to enemies around him and healing himself for a large amount. With this ability, Echo can dash into a fight, do all the damage he can, take a ton of damage back, teleport back out of the fight, healing himself and damaging any enemies foolish enough to follow him, before then re-engaging the fight. While Echo is a very difficult, intense champion to play, he has incredible potential for assassinating enemies and coming out ahead of situations where he really shouldn't be able to win. Because of his low durability, however, he does balance somewhat on a knife's edge. A single misstep with Echo can mean the difference between victory and defeat. Tristana, the Yordle Gunner, is an AD carry, also known as a marksman, who is a late-game scaling hyper carry. Her power is limited early on in the game, but later on in the game she gains the ability to burst down enemies with enormous chunks of damage coming from her critical hits and her abilities. Tristana is one of the best characters in the game at taking down enemy structures, and she has decent wave clear, although she does pay for it with very limited survivability in bad situations. Among her key abilities are the Rocket Jump, which will jump to a target location, dealing damage to enemies in a small area. The cooldown of the Rocket Jump is reset by kills or assists, allowing her to use it rapidly in a fight if her team is winning. Tristana relies heavily on Rocket Jump to get out of bad situations, but it is also one of her most powerful offensive tools, and choosing which way to use it will make the difference between a great and a terrible Tristana player. Another important ability is Explosive Charge, which will attach a time bomb to an enemy or structure. If she attacks whoever is holding the time bomb, it will be pumped up to deal extra damage with the explosion. This allows Tristana to be extremely effective in destroying enemy structures, since the bomb can do incredible damage to an enemy building. Her ultimate is the Buster Shot, which will fire a massive cannonball, damaging the primary targets and knocking back all enemies near it. The Buster Shot, despite doing decent damage, is more of a defensive ability, as it allows Tristana to knock away enemies that she doesn't want to fight. If she's feeling very confident, however, she can also use it to knock enemies into bad situations. Braum, the Heart of the Freljord, is a durable defensive support champion. He's a versatile defender of his fellow teammates with an incredible ability to block enemy attacks and stunning and locking down enemies by cooperating with the rest of his teammates. Among his key abilities are Concussive Blows, his passive ability which is always on. Concussive Blows causes Braum's attacks to put a mark on the enemy which stacks with every subsequent attack from Braum or his allies, and at 4 stacks the victim will be stunned and damaged. Braum will use this ability to mark as many enemies as he can, allowing his allies to attack them in rapid succession. This forces enemies to play very carefully around Braum, as the stun and the extra damage from his passive can be devastating if it's triggered at the wrong time. Another key ability for Braum is Unbreakable. Braum raises his shield and blocks all incoming projectiles from a particular direction. This means that if a powerful ability is flying towards one of his allies, Braum can basically get in the way of it and almost completely negate all the damage from it. His ultimate is Glacial Fissure, which will slam a huge line of ice across the field, knocking up enemies and slowing anyone who enters the field of ice for a short time. This ability allows Braum to knock up and disable multiple enemies and set his team up for a powerful team fight, or to help his team get away from a bad fight by disabling the enemy long enough for everyone to escape.
So, with all of this explained, let's head on to Summoner's Rift.
Welcome to the Rift, ladies and gentlemen. Counterlogic Gaming taking on Flash Wolves in the group stages of the World Championships. Now, the first thing both teams will be doing is moving across the map and putting down their early vision using the trinkets that they have in their inventories. The trinkets put down a temporary little item on the field called a trinket ward, which you can see CLG destroying one off there. And these provide vision in the surrounding area around the ward, letting them get information on who's moving there, who's doing something, who is setting up plays or making movements across the map. So getting that early vision down, and both teams are moving very aggressively into the other team's side of the map to put down that early vision to get that information so that they can know exactly who's going where, what sort of early play is each team trying to pull off here. Now, Counterlogic Gaming are also sticking around Flash Wolves' side of the map, up in the red side of the map there. With those wards down, they will know before anyone comes to potentially attack them, or if they are running into enemies that are more powerful than they can handle. But 2 people are staying up there, just waiting for Flash Wolves to go do whatever it is they're going to do. And you can also see that Doublelift and Aframu from CLG were sort of trying to avoid the vision area of that ward right there. If they could have gotten into that area of the map without being detected, well, they would have had a small strategic advantage from the start. Now, in the meantime, we do see that Counterlogic Gaming are trying to counter jungle in Flash Wolf's side of the map. What this means is that they're taking away the monsters that live in the jungle area, the forested jungle area. Taking those away, destroying them, killing them, and getting gold and experience points that make them more powerful, but they're also preventing Flash Wolf's jungler Karsa from destroying those same minions, which denies him power and gold. So it's a very effective way to sort of limit his power in the early game by taking away some of the resources that he can use to get himself more powerful. Now, we do have a little bit of a pause coming out here, as one of the players seems to have some sort of technical difficulties, so let's just skip ahead to when the game recommences, so that we don't have to wait on this. And we're back on the Rift. Now, in the top side, we're looking at Scion Spartan in the top lane, and Pobelter in the mid lane fighting a little bit with Maple and actually getting the better end of that trade. Now, early on in the game, neither team will be looking to have giant big fights or particularly be aggressive pushing across the map. They just want to get their early experience and their early gold, get their early items, and just get to their first power spikes, which are sudden increases in their power, their ability to fight that comes with leveling up a few times, buying a few items. So most of the fighting you'll see will be trading damage back and forth, just throwing out an ability or an attack or two, trying to see if you can't do more damage to the enemy than they can do to you, and then backing off again. Especially in the mid lane, this is going to be happening a lot, but it happens in all the lanes. And now we see Xsmithy moving up towards the top side of the map, probably looking to set up an ambush on Flash Wolf's top laner Stake. Now, An ambush in this game is usually called a gank, and this is a very old piece of gaming terminology, but a gank is basically when someone appears suddenly from out of nowhere and attempts to get a kill on someone else. In this instance, Steak was able to jump away with no problem, leading Xmithy to back off once he realized that his ambush wasn't gonna work this time, but he's gonna try for it again. Scion Spartan going in, spending a flash, which is a summoner spell, to attempt to get a hold of Steak, but Steak, using his own flash to get away, manages to get away from that situation. Now, the flash is a powerful summoner spell, which is a spell that any champion can have, but it has a very long cooldown. It allows people to teleport over a very short distance instantly, so it is incredibly crucial for getting out of bad situations, but it has a 5-minute cooldown, which is a hell of a long time, so it is something that when you use it, you're vulnerable for a while, because you no longer have this safety, this way of escaping, and because the cooldown is so long, you have to play more cautiously for a full 5 minutes, which can seriously put you behind if you are not careful in the game. In this instance, it's probably not going to matter that much, because Scion Spartan also spent his flash, just as Steak spent his flash, so they really went even on that trade. Xmithy, though, has not given up on this. He's still up in the top lane. This time he's got a better positioning on Steak, and Steak now is in a little bit of trouble. Can't hide in the bush there because of the ward that's spotting him out. He's almost down on health, but oh, he jumps away, gets onto a minion, and jumps out of range in the nick of time. And Xmithy cannot follow him because that turret, that enemy tower that Steak was hiding underneath, would have attacked Xmithy and killed him very quickly if he had attempted to dive underneath the turret and get the kill. So Xmithy, successful gank, sort of. He does push Steak away from farming, away from getting any gold or experience, but nonetheless, he spent a lot of time in the top lane without getting a kill, without really getting what he wanted out of the situation, so it's not really perfect for counter logic gaming, and Steak has been playing it very well to stay safe. Now, in response to all that jungle pressure, perhaps Karsa is hanging out the top side of the map, but he's not really going to find anything, as Scion Spartan is backing away to base using the recall spell that will pull any player back to base after about an 8-second channel time. In the mid lane, though, Maple taking a heck of a lot of damage from Pobelter. Ooh, very low on health, has to back away immediately. Pobelter using the very long, complicated range of Lulu, the champion that he's playing, just to poke at Maple and really just do a ton of damage, and Maple just is not a very sturdy champion on that Echo. Echo has a lot of damage, but he really can't take a lot of punishment, especially before level 6. At level 6, he gains access to his ultimate, which will make him immeasurably more dangerous, but until then, Pobelter seems to have the run of the mid lane. So, something to notice across the map is the little red and blue icons that are scattered across the minimap if you look at the lower right. These represent the wards that each team has put down on the map. You can see Karsa walking by one of his own wards there with the red health bar. Now, the more wards a team has on the map generally, the more control they have on the map, the better they're able to plan out their actions. So, taking a look at which team has more vision control and more wards on the map is a pretty decent indicator of how well the team is doing. But now, 2 people jumping on Scion Spartan in the top lane. That's Steak using his ultimate and the giant power of that Meganar form to put a ton of damage down onto Scion Spartan, who can really do nothing but run away. He does manage to heal himself just a little bit with one of his abilities, but it's not going to be enough. Karsa flashes for it and gets the first blood kill. Very well done by Flash Wolves to double gank that top lane, really responding to all the pressure that Xmithy has been attempting to put on the top side of the map and helping Steak sort of get back in the game. Steak was very far behind in terms of creep score, which you can see in the bottom of the screen, that little number next to the champion portraits. He was very far behind, which left him down on gold and down on experience and really not able to deal with Scion Spartan, but because of the attention that Karsa has been bringing to the top lane, he's managed to catch up a little bit, and Scion Spartan will not be able to easily outclass him, which was one of the things that Xmithy was trying to do by being up there so much. He was hoping to get Scion Spartan ahead, and Scion Spartan is playing a champion called Darius, who, when he gets ahead, tends to stay ahead and be an absolute menace. Now, the game is relatively peaceful early on. You see Xmithy here taking away the blue buff in the jungle and giving it over to Pobelter. Now, the blue buff is given when you kill the big blue golem that hangs out in each side of the jungle, and it allows you to cast your spells more often when you have it, and it also regenerates your mana very, very quickly, so it's extremely valuable to mid laners like Pobelter and Maple. There is also a red buff elsewhere in the jungle, which when you have that on you, you can do extra damage with every single attack you land on the enemy, and your attacks will also slow the enemy down. So that's really something that junglers like Xmithy and Karsa value highly. They really want that red buff because it helps them a lot in ambushing the enemy, in trying to set up picks and little skirmishers for their team. And control over these buffs is a very important objective that the teams will be fighting over as the game goes on. You can see Karsa here just waiting for Maple to come around so he can give him the blue buff as well, so he can fight evenly with Pobelter. Now, one of the things that you might see a team do is attempt to steal away the blue buff at the last moment, like come in from the side and just grab it at the last second to deny it from the enemy mid laner, because it is so important, especially in the early game before they have a lot of items, to have that blue buff so they can keep casting their spells again and again and again and be effective constantly. Now, with Maple keeping Pobelter busy in the mid lane, Karsa has taken on the dragon all on his own. Now, the dragon, as you can see, is a pretty big scary monster and not that easy to fight one-on-one. But because the rest of Flash Wolves are able to keep Counter Logic Gaming at bay, Karsa can do it pretty safely, and it's gonna go down in just a minute. Now, the dragon is a relatively unique monster in that when you kill it, you don't get a lot of gold, you don't get a lot of experience, but you get a small power increase that stays with you throughout the entire game. The trick to the dragon is that it will respawn in about 6 minutes, and if you kill it again, you gain another buff on top of the previous one, and another power up on top of the previous one when you kill 3 and 4, and if you should manage to kill 5, as Maple takes a ton of damage in the jungle, they are getting caught out by Xmithy and Pobelter. As I was saying, if you manage to kill 5 dragons, you gain a huge burst of power for about 3 minutes time that makes you incredibly powerful in a fight, and this buff can typically end the game if one of the teams manages to get a hold on it. So while it's not a catastrophe to give away 1 dragon, ooh, Kramer getting caught out a little bit there. I kept saying Karma, he's Kramer. While it's not terrible for Counter Logic Gaming to give up a single dragon, they certainly can't give up 3 or 4, because at that point the 5th dragon becomes such a threat that they have to devote a lot of resources to preventing Flash Wolves from getting the 5th one. So it's something to keep an eye out for, that a team, even if a team is behind, if they can get 5 dragons, that is their ticket back into the lead and into the win. So it's something to keep your eyes on as the game goes on. Who can take dragons, who can keep dragons away from the enemy team. And when that 5th dragon rolls around, if it rolls around, it's relatively rare, that can be the signal to end the game. So we do see Science Spartan and Xmithy moving in deep in enemy territory here. This is kind of a risky position to be in, especially when there's multiple enemies around. Xmithy just taking down the vision from the enemy, and Pobelter providing support on the backside just by staying nearby. He's making sure that if a situation arises in the top lane, if Xmithy had gotten caught out by an enemy he hadn't seen, Pobelter could have been there fast enough to help him out. But they just wanted to put down a little pressure. Now, something that is important in high-level play is mental pressure as well as actual in-game pressure. And just by being in certain areas and by players knowing that, oh, this guy is somewhere around here, that exerts a mental pressure on the players, because they have to calculate, okay, this guy is around this position, when can he be here, how much damage can he do, how careful should I be? So moving across the map for the junglers is not just random rambling about. They have a plan with where they want to be, who they want to make uncomfortable, where they want to take away resources. They plan this out very carefully and communicate with their teams a lot to make sure they're in the right position at the right time. Ooh, Swordart getting caught out there, but Pobelter on the side being kept busy by Maple, can't really close in, so no kill for CLG there. But Science Spartan in the top lane getting caught out by Stake, and Karsa once again taking a ton of damage. He manages to get away with his flash, spending that 5-minute cooldown once more in order to avoid getting killed again. But he is in a little bit of trouble now up against Stake, because Stake now has access to his own ultimate and a heck of a lot of power when he is in that Mega Gnar form. So Science Spartan has to be quite careful now, especially with Maple coming up as well. Maple isn't going to find him, though, because Scion is backing off, while in the bottom lane, Aphromoo and Doublelift are putting a lot of pressure on this bottom turret. It's taking a lot of damage, and once that turret is destroyed, Counterlogic Gaming will get a large gold bonus, and they will also have an easier time controlling that area of the map where the turret used to be. Turrets are very safe places to hide, so if you can take away turrets from the enemy team, all of a sudden they have to take much bigger risks moving across the map than you do, which is a nice way to establish control and help you snowball a match in your favor. And you can see this turret is almost about to go down. Aphromoo going in very hard onto Kramer, but he doesn't really have to back up to get a kill. He just zones them away, forcing them away from that turret, which Doublelift just destroys happily, and they push out the wave, and Xmithy just there for the moral support in this instance. But if they had gotten a catch on Kramer and could have gotten the kill, that would have been a huge win for Counterlogic Gaming. As it is, they'll be happy just taking a turret. We do see a little bit of a skirmish perhaps being set up around the middle of the map here. Karsa taking away the blue buff. And Science Spartan even moving down from top lane. This is a very determined push on the mid lane being set up by Counterlogic Gaming. They want this middle turret as well. They are looking to snowball the lead from the bottom lane into the middle lane, because with the turret gone in the bottom lane, Aphromoo and Doublelift are more free to move across the middle of the map as well. So by moving up there, they put a lot of pressure on the Flash Wolves all of a sudden. And Flash Wolves now have to be aware that, okay, Doublelift and Aphromoo could turn up almost anywhere on the map now. We have to be a little bit more careful here. Still, Counterlogic Gaming don't get that much damage on the tower, and in the top lane, Stake is doing a pretty decent job of pressuring Science Spartan's turret, as Doublelift and Aphromoo return to the bottom lane. Now, the dragon will be up in about a minute's time, so what Doublelift and Aphromoo are doing right now are just scouting out the area, clearing out enemy vision if they can, just making sure that the Flash Wolves don't control that area too completely, so that when the dragon comes up, Counterlogic Gaming can go there and fight for it if necessary. And this is all sort of, it's very hard to appreciate sometimes just how important these small actions are in League of Legends, but it really is incredibly important to maintain vision control over the map, because if you don't have vision, you can't make plans and you can't react correctly to the enemy. So while it's something that in casual play it's perhaps not the be-all, end-all, in professional play, it really is one of the primary things to look out for, is who can see what, and what can they plan based on that. If someone is standing on an enemy ward, they are in danger, essentially, because the enemy will go, okay, you're there, we know you're there, so we can bring 4 people down there and kill you if we want. So being in vision of the enemy is always a little bit of a risk. And it's something to keep an eye out for when you look at the map, like how carefully the teams manage to stay out of vision of the enemy. Now, Stake and Science Spartan having a little bit of a brawl up there in the top lane, but I really don't think Science Spartan can take him on right now. Yes, Stake doing quite a bit of extra damage. He's deceptively powerful with that Gnar, and Science Spartan doesn't have any of his major items yet, so he has not really had the opportunity to get the power he needs in order to duel Stake one-on-one. Now, Sword Art is actually coming in for a gank, and Science Spartan hiding underneath the turret, might not be able to get out of this one alive. Stake slams him into the wall. He gets knocked up by Sword Art. They just switch tanking the turret shots, and Stake walks away with another kill to his name. Science Spartan taken down once again, but because they sent 2 people to the top lane, the Flash Wolves gave up control over the dragon area, which Counterlogic Gaming immediately exploited, taking away the dragon for themselves without having to get into a fight for it. Now, this is also another key feature of pro League of Legends play, is that when you lose something somewhere, a great team will be able to go elsewhere on the map and get something back. They'll be able to find some little resource that they can exploit, just some little thing that's open, something they can take back to minimize the amount of advantage the enemy has whenever they get a kill or destroy a tower or get a dragon. And how well a team is able to counter an enemy's moves by taking away something elsewhere on the map is something that's very important to look out for when you're watching the game in order to figure out, well, which team is better. Well, usually it's the one that can deny the enemy advantages. Even when they make a bad play, even when they get caught out or killed, some teams can just come back so magnificently, it's like the enemy never got a kill at all. Speaking of getting a kill, a lot of members from Flash Wolves in the mid lane here making a very determined push on this tower. Aphromoo getting caught out a little bit, taking a hell of a lot of damage, just uses ultimate to keep himself safe as the tower does go down, giving extra gold over to the Flash Wolves. That was a very quick, very determined push, and Flash Wolves really didn't leave CLG a chance to even defend that. Now Spartan just walking past Stake, doesn't really want to fight him. He wants to go to the middle lane and support his team, because it looks like Logic Gaming are taking another poke at the middle lane themselves. They really want this middle turret, and Sword Art and Mabel taking a hell of a lot of damage for it. Mabel, though, regenerating a lot of his health using his ultimate ability. Stake jumping into the middle of Logic Gaming, knocks 2 people forward, but it's not going to be enough to catch any of them out, and he has to get away. A lot of Flash Wolves are very low on health now, and they're backing off as Logic Gaming continue the push into the middle lane. They really, really want that turret, and eventually they're gonna get it. Now the question is, how long can Flash Wolves defend it? Kramer, very low on health, has to be a little bit careful, but Doublelift as well, being forced away out of mana and unable to do any more damage to the turret. Logic Gaming now have to back away as Flash Wolves put up a spirited defense, securing that turret for themselves for the foreseeable future. Now, as I said, that turret will eventually go down, but the longer Flash Wolves can delay Logic Gaming being able to take down that turret, the less it's going to matter. Killing turrets is one of the primary ways to establish a gold lead over the enemy team, besides killing their champions. So if Flash Wolves can kill 4 turrets before Logic Gaming can kill 2 turrets, they will have a map control lead, but they will also have a gold lead. Logic Gaming cannot push past a tower that is still standing. The tower has to go down, because so long as a tower is up, any tower that is behind it will remain invulnerable until the preceding one is destroyed. So you can't push past a tower, no matter how low on health it is, no matter how much it doesn't really matter anymore. You can't push past it. It has to go down before you can push further into enemy territory and establish control. Speaking of which, Doublelift very easily taking out the last bit of health on that top side turret, getting a bunch of gold for his team, but in the meantime, Stake and Sword Art on the bottom side of the map looking to do exactly the same thing. And they're gonna get this turret too. It's going down pretty quickly to Stake, who's doing a lot of damage with his big item. That black cleaver in his item is in the first slot in his inventory. Helps him do a lot of extra damage to turrets and makes him really annoying to deal with. Oh, Kramer jumping on Pobelter, looking to get a kill, but Pobelter has so many defensive abilities, Kramer can't really get the damage down. A bold play from Flash Wolves AD carry, not necessarily the smartest one though, and a little bit of a skirmish over the jungle monsters as Logic Gaming once again set up for a push on this mid lane. They want this tower dead, and they're damn well gonna get it this time, I think. Doublelift taking a lot of poke damage, trying to get damage down on that turret. It is risky to walk forwards like that. Doublelift has to put himself at risk every time he lands a hit on the tower, and they don't actually manage to get it as Flash Wolves rally and immediately push away, and Smithy has to jump over the wall just to get away from that situation, because the Flash Wolves were chasing very aggressively, ready for a fight there, and Logic Gaming wanted none of it. Doublelift just gonna settle instead of a tower. He's gonna take the red buff and become just a little bit more powerful in a fight, as the Flash Wolves move into Logic Gaming's jungle and take away the blue buff. Now Pobelter does not have access to that extra mana regeneration and that extra cooldown reduction on his spells, so he's going to be in a little bit of trouble compared to Maple, who will have access to the blue buff, or hopefully will, unless Logic Gaming steal it away. And Logic Gaming haven't given up. They're gonna get this turret, finally landing the final hit and destroying it. And now they're gonna back away since they can't really seem to find a good fight. And they probably wouldn't want to fight either that deep in enemy territory. Spartan moving to the bottom lane on his own, trying to do some extra damage to that turret, getting quite a bit of damage on it too, almost half of the health going away there before Flash Wolves can respond. Now with 30 seconds to the dragon coming back up, Logic Gaming are sticking around the middle area of the map, possibly looking to fight for that dragon, which would be a bold decision, I think. Flash Wolves just taking away their own blue buff. Everybody seems to be backing off a little bit. Yeah, Logic Gaming are going back to base. With 16 seconds on the dragon, they have effectively given up a lot of control over the area. And it's gonna be interesting to see whether Flash Wolves can capitalize on this and steal away the dragon before Logic Gaming can respond. But we'll see how it all works out. Now Kramer in the mid lane, just clearing out a wave. Everybody seems to have reset a little bit, just waiting for things for objectives to come back, waiting for people to get back into position. Doublelift has built up a pretty decent lead over Kramer, by the way. He has a lot more farm than his opposite number, and that gives him some extra items and some extra power. But while Counterlogic Gaming are all spread across the map, Flash Wolves have decided to take away the dragon. Now, they do give up a lot of their control of the rest of the map in order to do this. However, getting that dragon, like I said, it sets them up for more and more bonuses later on, so it's a worthwhile investment, and Counterlogic Gaming really aren't getting that much back in return. And Counterlogic Gaming should probably be more proactive in the future when they know an enemy is taking away an objective, and they do know when that happens. They really should be more careful to take... Whoa, that is a bold move indeed. The Baron that you see there, that big purple snake monster there is called the Baron. It is extremely powerful, extremely dangerous, and trying to fight it this early in the game is an extremely risky move by Counterlogic Gaming, and they seem to be backing away from it as well. That would have been fantastic for Counterlogic Gaming if it had worked, but since it didn't, they now have to back away. Pobelter getting caught out a little bit, has to use some abilities to get away. Now, the Baron is an incredibly powerful monster. Like the Dragon, if you kill the Baron, you get some powerful bonuses. Unlike the Dragon, though, you don't have to kill 5 of them, you just have to kill him 1 time. And you get a powerful bonus that lets you make your minions much more powerful than the enemy minions and push on the map really, really hard, forcing the enemy onto the defensive. But like I said, at 24 minutes into the game, that is way too early to be looking to take down that objective. Again, a little bit of focus on the middle lane here. Counterlogic Gaming collapsing in the middle area of the map. Not sure exactly what they're going for. Moving towards the Baron area once again. I do reiterate that this is extremely risky, especially considering that you can see that the Flash Wolves have a ward right in the Baron pit. They know this is going on, so they're all moving across the map to stop it, and we have another pause coming out, another little bit of technical difficulty, it looks like, in the studio. We will be skipping past that and getting back into the action as soon as we can. And we're back on the Rift. It looks like Counterlogic Gaming have backed away from the Baron once again, deciding against really trying to take down that big monster. You can see that Aftermove, though, has taken a lot of damage in the process of trying to fight the Baron. It is extremely powerful. If you're fighting the Baron and the enemy team starts a fight at the same time, you can be in a lot of trouble if you can't get away effectively, or if you can't kill the Baron fast enough. Having stopped the Baron attempt, Flash Wolves take away all of Counterlogic Gaming's vision and put up their own wards and gain vision control over the area, which will allow them to prevent Counterlogic Gaming from attempting to do this in the future. Now, if Counterlogic Gaming want to go for the Baron again, first they have to move in and clear away all the vision. Then they have to wait for a while, because Flash Wolves will know when their vision is being cleared out, oh, they're near the Baron, we should probably respond. So you have to clear out the vision, walk away for a little while, wait until you think the enemy can't see you, and then you have to try for it again. It is generally a very difficult process to take down the Baron this early. So Doublelift up on the top side of the map, farming up a little bit more. He stays very far ahead of Kramer in terms of the CS, but neither him nor Kramer have gotten any kills yet in this game. It's been a very low kill game, which is not ideal for either of these two AD carries. They are powerful late game hyper carries, so they want to be getting kills around this time in the game, around the beginning of the mid game, when they have 2 or 3 items. This is when they want to be picking up kills, getting more items, becoming super powerful, and carrying their team to victory. Neither of them have had a lot of success doing that, because neither team has really been willing to get into major fights anywhere on the map yet. And because there are because there are no dragons on the map, there really isn't an objective to fight over, so the teams seem to be content just clearing out the map of monsters, picking up what resources they can, and waiting for an objective to be worth fighting over. And Sword Art taking quite a bit of punishment from Doublelift there, who is being very aggressive in his movement. That is a little bit risky coming from the Counterlogic Gaming AD carry, and he's actually going in still. Sword Art taken so incredibly low, has to use his ultimate just to get away from it, and blows his flash as well. That is a very low health support all of a sudden. Doublelift with 3 items now can do a hell of a lot of damage in a short amount of time if he lands those critical hits, which are quite random, unfortunately. So poke from Doublelift can be extremely deadly if you can't counter it or jump back on him. On the other hand, though, Doublelift is also very fragile, and if he gets caught out himself, he's going to be dead very quickly. Doublelift is known as an aggressive player, however, and he doesn't really seem to give two damns, but Stake now caught out in the middle of it. The enemy team there uses his ultimate to shove them all away. Aphromoo pushing away Stake himself as well, as CLG Gaming look to disengage this fight. They don't have the positioning that they want. They are regrouping now, though, and they're continuing the push into the middle lane. This looks like a fight in the making. They want this inner middle turret, and Flash Wolves don't want to give it up. Now we see Doublelift putting down a hell of a lot of damage on that turret. He's so good at killing them with his character, but oh my word, Science Spartan going in very hard, and Aphromoo as well getting caught out there, taking quite a bit of damage, but Doublelift coming in from the side, a couple of huge critical hits, taking away a lot of damage from the enemy team. And Kramer, oh my word, gets destroyed, but Doublelift follows him into the grave immediately after. Aphromoo is also going to follow, and CLG Gaming are immediately on the retreat as Flash Wolves chase them away from the middle of the map. Whoa, that was extremely sudden. We're probably going to get a replay of that in a moment, and we can break down exactly what just happened there, because it really did happen in a flash. But the upshot of it is that CLG Gaming lost 2 people, while Flash Wolves only lost 1 person, and thus they came out ahead in that engagement. And because they came out ahead in that fight, they're going to be able to take away a 3rd dragon, as it respawns on the map just now. Giving them another stacking bonus, which does put some pressure on CLG Gaming to stop them. Now we see this happening again. Doublelift is busy attacking the turret. Scion Spartan and Aphromoo go in onto Flash Wolves down there on the right, and they take a ton of damage for their troubles and have to back away. But then Doublelift comes in, gets a decent amount of damage back. Maple trying to zone them away, doesn't really manage it. Doublelift goes very aggressive, gets the kill, but immediately falls himself. Aphromoo is too low on health to survive, gets taken out as well, and CLG Gaming have to sound the retreat immediately. Now Karsa activating the Baron there, just clearing out the enemy vision as Aphromoo and Xmithy come in just to shove him away, just to say, don't sit around here, mate. We control this area. You can't have the Baron. It is quite important to keep that area safe, and the teams will be contesting that area more and more as the game goes on. Polebolter getting his blue buff. And a lot of the more powerful items are now coming out in the inventories down at the bottom of your screen. You can see the items in the item slots sort of starting to crop up, starting to build up, and everybody has about 2 or 3 finished items at this point in the game, which means they've hit their power spikes, which means they're ready to fight now. Now they're ready to brawl. Now they're ready to get into some scraps. Part of the reason why they've been so hesitant to get into big fights earlier is because they didn't have those items. They didn't really feel comfortable in their power levels to be getting into a fight. But now that they've reached certain level thresholds, now that they've reached certain numbers of items, they're going to get a lot more aggressive with the enemy, a lot more willing to fight if they can get the right positioning. This phase of the game is generally called the mid to late game. It's when teams are ready to fight, when they're sort of done farming and just clearing out the map and waiting for items to be finished, which is the early game. You get into the middle game and the late game, and this is when League of Legends tends to get most exciting, because everybody's moving around the map as a unit. You can see always 2 or 3 people walking together, almost always, except for the top laners, obviously, who have teleport, which lets them get into a fight immediately from any position on the map. But people moving around as groups, they're looking for the enemy, looking to see, can we catch them out? Can we get a little bit of a fight going here? Can we put down some vision? Can we set up an area? And Aphromoo, speaking of setting up, Aphromoo and Xmithy and Doublelift all quite deep in enemy territory here. This is a bit of a risky proposition. Doublelift wants damage on the turret, but if they get caught out here, that could cost them quite a lot. Xmithy getting caught out quite a bit by Karsa. He has taken a hell of a lot of damage. I'm not sure he's going to be able to get out of this one. Yes, Doublelift manages to defend them away, but Scion Spartan now in trouble. Aphromoo trying to do his best he can to help out his top laner, but Scion Spartan goes down, and Aphromoo is going to follow. He has no way out of this situation, and CLG Gaming, once again losing 2 people, have to back away, and they get absolutely nothing in return. This is a bit of a disaster for the American favorites. That didn't work out the way they wanted, and now Flash Wolves, with only 3 enemies to deal with, one of whom is very low on health, they're feeling comfortable enough to take the Baron down. Polebolter and Doublelift are trying to annoy Flash Wolves, but they're not going to be able to find anything, and Baron Nashor goes over to Flash Wolves. So what you'll see in a moment is that the Flash Wolves are going to walk close to a set of minions, and those minions are going to start to glow purple. When the minions glow purple, this means that they have become empowered and are a lot stronger than the enemy's minions. So they're going to push really hard on the lane, they're going to run faster, they're going to take more punishment, they're going to be very difficult to deal with, which puts Counter Logic Gaming on the defensive anytime that Flash Wolves can empower minions with the Baron. You can see here again, Smithy gets taken so low at the beginning of the fight, he's completely irrelevant from now on, so it's a 4 versus 5, which is why Counter Logic Gaming get beaten so badly. Also, Scion, Spartan, and Aphromoo are completely separated from their team, with 4 members jumping all over their faces. They get separated, it's divide and conquer. You have to work as a unit at this stage in the game, and Counter Logic Gaming couldn't be a unit because they just couldn't get together into a group and set up for a proper brawl, which is why Flash Wolves got such an easy win without sacrificing anything. And now they're just moving across the map, finding their minion waves, empowering them with the Baron, and just putting Counter Logic Gaming on the defensive, because Counter Logic Gaming cannot allow these empowered minions to push on their turrets, because if they do, they will lose their turrets and the enemy will gain more gold and the situation will become more hopeless. All they can really do now is clear out the enemy minion waves, hope maybe they can kill an enemy or two, because killing an enemy gets the Baron buff off them, or just wait for the Baron buff to time out on its own, which it will do after a while. Fortunately, Counter Logic Gaming has okay wave clear, which means they're able to kill those minions before they can do too much damage, but they're still going to be losing an inner turret up here in the top lane. Maple and a bunch of minions just destroying it before Counter Logic Gaming have half a chance to respond, and because they were trying to respond in the top lane, they gave up the defense of the middle lane. They're going to lose that turret as well. Aphromoo taking hellishly low as he has to run away from the enemy, and Scion Spartan now also with a bomb on his head, going to take a ton of damage. He's going to survive it just barely, and now Flash Wolves, a couple of critical hits from Doublelift put Maple quite low on health. He has to back away from this one now, and CLG chasing the retreating Flash Wolves quite far out of their base, but because of the powerful minions, because they have to defend, they can't really chase too far. They can't really go for kills or a big fight, because that would take them away from more important objectives. So Maple is back to full health, and that bottom lane turret is definitely going to go down, and Scion Spartan is going to follow it. He's going to get taken out. No, he's surviving. No, he's actually dead. Now the fight is on, though. Maple chasing very deep onto Doublelift, not really going to be able to find the kill that he wants. Now he's taking a ton of damage back, and he does not have a way to get that health back. Stake also going to get taken out by Popelter. This is not great for the Flash Wolves. They have to back away pretty damn quickly now. Popelter flashes forward, gets the kill onto Maple, 2 for nothing, 3 for 2, actually, rather, in favor of Counter Logic Gaming, managing to find an advantageous fight in a bad situation. This is very difficult to do, but Doublelift is pretty reckless running out that far, but Flash Wolves don't want any part of that fight. They don't want to try and kill him before his teammates can arrive, because they're right on his heels, and Counter Logic Gaming are going to use this to get themselves another dragon. So that was a bit of a lucky break for Counter Logic Gaming. It started out as a very bad situation with Scion Spartan getting caught underneath the turret and just jumped on by too many people to survive, and Aphromoo also getting taken so low at the beginning of the fight, but then the Flash Wolves chased too far, and Counter Logic Gaming able to turn around. You can see it happening here. Scion Spartan gets caught. He's dead. He's just gone. There's nothing they can do for him. The turret goes down. Aphromoo low on health. Tries to knock away some enemies, but he gets separated from the team, and now it's a 3 versus 5, which shouldn't be possible to win, but because Flash Wolves are sort of disjointed, they're moving forwards and backwards, but they're not doing it together. Counter Logic Gaming can just focus one target at a time, take them really low on health, and then when they feel like they have the advantage, they flash forward, they just charge onto the enemy lines. Ooh, Karsa almost dying to Doublelift there. Charge onto the enemy lines, pick up a couple of kills, and come out ahead in the situation due to superior team fighting. That was a bit of a mistake from the Flash Wolves, threw away a little bit of their lead there, and the Baron buff has now also expired, which means they will not have that superior map pressure to play off any longer. So Counter Logic Gaming now have an opportunity to grab some advantages back on the map. You can see that Flash Wolves are doing the best they can to take away monsters from the jungle, to deny resources and buffs to Counter Logic Gaming to make it harder for them to come back, but so far, honestly, Flash Wolves are having a lot of trouble closing out this game. They have a lead, they have had a great lead for a long time, but they really haven't been able to push it quite as far as they need to in order to win the game yet. They have an advantage, but CLG Gaming are very much still in it. So, both teams looking to clear out some enemy vision. They're just moving around the map, putting down wards, defeating enemy wards, making sure that the enemy can't see too much into their territory. And as CLG Gaming are split up across the map, this means a middle push coming up from the Flash Wolves, pushing pretty darn hard on this inhibitor turret very far into the CLG Gaming space, but they managed to come back and defend it just in time. And you can see the big shielded cannon minion down there. It was bigger than they usually were. This is because of an item that Sword Art has picked up called the Banner of Command, which lets him make one minion much more powerful for a short time. It's sort of like a mini Baron buff in that it allows them to create a more powerful minion wave that they can then use to push on the enemy base and structures. Now, whether he's going to be able to use that effectively throughout the game is very much up to Sword Art as the inner turret goes down and Kramer gets caught out, destroyed, obliterated from the map before Flash Wolves even have a chance to engage. And that's the main damage dealer of the Flash Wolves taken out of the game almost in a blink of an eye, and now CLG Gaming have a pretty decisive advantage and they want to push it. They're staying around here, they're not backing off, they're waiting for their minions, and then they're going to try and take down this turret as well. Or actually, screw the turret, they're actually going in for a fight. Cyan Spartan going forward very aggressively, and Smithy as well, forcing the Flash Wolves back, meaning that CLG Gaming can take down the turret and the inhibitor. Now, with the inhibitor down, this middle lane is going to start spawning super minions in CLG Gaming's favor. Super minions are exactly what they sound like. They're regular minions, but much bigger and much more powerful. As Cyan Afromove going in very deep, catching out several people. CLG really making a bit of a disjointed fight of it, but Stake really caught out a little bit. Cyan Spartan taking a lot of damage himself as well, has to back away a little bit. No! He dunks on Stake and gets the kill back. Cyan Spartan very low on health, but manages to pick up a kill for his team nonetheless. With that victory, however, CLG Gaming feel the need to back off. There is another Baron available on the map. They might want to contest this without Flash Wolves having the big tanky frontliner in Stake. They might not be super interested in this fight. You can see them being very cautious as they approach. As CLG Gaming are moving towards the Baron pit, Doublelift is starting it off. They might want to go for it. No, they're just baiting it. So this is the complicated part of team strategy, where whether you're going to go for the Baron or not is something that's very important to consider, because sometimes they're just pretending to go for the Baron to lure the enemy team into trying to attack them, which puts them in a bad situation, like right here when Mabel gets dragged over the wall by Cyan Spartan. He really can't duel this guy one-on-one. Cyan Spartan is much too powerful to kill one against one at this point in the game. Sword Art now getting caught out himself, taking a hell of a lot of damage as CLG Gaming unload a lot, but they're taking a lot of poke back coming in from Kramer there. Karsak gets caught out again. He's dragged into the middle of CLG Gaming. Won't be long for this world. He does not manage to get a kill back, actually. Sword Art now out on the side, separated from his team, is going to be the next victim. And Stake himself, even though he has full health, he really can't do much in his little form. And Kramer, also, while he's a very powerful AD carry, not enough to fight 5 members of CLG Gaming, who are now going to take down a second inhibitor and inhibitor turret, getting more super minions to spawn. And they may just look to close out the game right here. They have a numbers advantage, so there's a long time before any members of the Flash Wolves who are dead will be coming back. Mabel goes in, tries to get some damage down, but it's not going to be enough. Stake goes in with him. Afron was probably going to fall here. Yeah, he's definitely dead, but still, they really haven't found the advantage they need. Cyan Spartan is super low on health. Kramer gets caught out. He gets destroyed. Mabel does manage to shut down Smithy, but pays for it with his own life. Now it's 1 versus 4. Well, 3 rather. CLG Gaming with 3 members versus 1. It's not going to be nearly enough. Stake knows that this game is over as he's just running away into the jungle. CLG Gaming taking down the Nexus in 42 minutes just about, securing themselves the first victory of CLG Gaming ever at a Worlds Tournament, because it is their first Worlds Tournament ever. Well, that was a barn burner. That was an exciting game from start to finish. I have, however, been talking for way too long. If you feel like there is more you could learn or questions that you might have, you should feel free to put them in the comments and subscribe to this channel for more videos with beginner-friendly content from the World Championships. If you feel like maybe you've learned enough to watch it on your own, well, the World Championships are happening right now, right up until the end of October. You can find all of that at lolesports.com, and there will be some links in the bottom of your screen. But I have been TV's guy, and I've been talking for way too long, and I will see you next time.